let's talk about the process then that went on to get this show together for the O2 Arena. And were you involved, or at least familiar with, the process of getting the This Is It production prepared and ready for final shows?
Yes.
All right. In March, was there any production going on for the This Is It show?
No production had started. I don't believe it kicked into gear until sometime in April.
What was happening in March?
In March, Michael and Paul had a couple of meetings about the show itself with some production people we had brought on board to help do the budgets. And to the best of my recollection, that's when Michael told Paul that he wanted Kenny Ortega to be the director.
All right, and Kenny Ortega was contacted?
Correct.
All right, now let's go into April. In April, what was Kenny Ortega part of the team in April? By April?
By April, I believe he was.
All right. What was going on in April with regard to this production?
Kenny had arranged for a production designer named Michael Cotton to be employed, Travis Payne as chief choreographer, and assorted other personnel were hired.
So we're hiring personnel in April. Are there other meetings going on about some of the creative issues that are involved in the production?
To the best of my knowledge, yes, I wasn't in all those meetings.
All right, so we're hiring staff. Are we also rehearsing, or not rehearsing, but
audition.
The word is lost. What do you do with dancers?
Audition.
Thanks. Thank you. Lost
Is that
the word.
okay?
Auditioning dancers during that period of time?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in April, then, when everything is ultimately set up and we've got the personnel in place, when ultimately do rehearsals start for the production?
Yeah, I honestly don't recollect when the rehearsal started.
Do you know? Could you narrow it down to a month? Did they begin it in April or in May?
I believe that they may have started in May, but I'm not 100% sure.
Let's go back to April, and I want to talk about or May, early May. I want to talk about any conversation that you might have had with Michael Jackson about a personal doctor. Do you recall having that conversation with him?
Yeah, it was a conversation that I had with him. It would have been sometime in May.
Sometime in May.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And was this a topic that you approached Michael on, or he approached you on?
No, it started. I wasn't involved in the initial discussions.
All right. How did you get involved?
I had returned from a road trip. I was traveling, and I stopped by the Forum because rehearsals at that point had moved into the Forum. So this would have been later in May.
Late May.
Yeah.
All right.
Had moved into the Forum, and I was walking in the hallway in front of the production office, and Paul Gongaware, a gentleman named Tim Woolley, who was our tour accountant or show accountant for the shows, and Frank DeLeo came up to me and said, we're having an issue with Michael on the hiring of a personal physician. He wants to hire his own physician to attend to his needs 24/7 and have him travel with the tour. And we haven't been able to talk him out of it, and it's going to be very, very expensive. Could you take a shot at Michael and see if you can convince him to use a London-based physician?
All right, and you agreed to take a shot?
Yes, I did.
All right, and what did you do?
I called Michael. I called Michael Lemire to set up a call to speak to Michael Jackson because that was the protocol. And I spoke to Michael, and I said to him, I said, Mike Jackson. I spoke to Michael Jackson, and I said, Mike, it's going to be very expensive to hire a doctor from America and have them on call 24/7 with you in London for these shows. And, you know, it is London when we're in a major capital city. Do you think that would that be okay if we got you someone, but we got someone who was based in London and was available when you needed them? And he was very firm and said, no, I need my own physician, and I need him 24/7, and I have a physician.
All right, and this is in late May.
I believe so,
All right.
Mr. Chernoff.
And you said what after Michael Jackson told you that?
Well, I mean, he was firm, and I said, okay, then I'll have Paul Gongware negotiate the best terms he can with the doctor for you.
All right. And that was your idea to have Paul Gongware call this particular doctor?
Paul was already engaged in the discussions. I really had nothing to do with the hiring of
All right.
the doctor.
And later on you learned that the doctor that Michael Jackson was talking about was Dr. Conrad Murray.
Correct.
All right. Had you met Dr. Murray prior to that conversation you had with Michael Jackson?
No,
You knew nothing about Dr. Murray?
nothing.
Okay. And Michael Jackson never mentioned that I have a physician or anything of that nature?
No, we never had that discussion, no.
All right. At some point, though, you met Dr. Murray
Correct.
after that conversation. When did you meet Dr. Murray?
To the best of my recollection, there was a meeting at Michael's house on Carrollwood Drive. I think it was in very early June.
Was it the first week of June, second week of June?
I think it was the first week of June.
All right. Was it on a weekday or was it on a weekend?
It was a weekday.
You're sure it was a weekend?
No, I believe it was a weekday.
A weekday.
Yeah. I mean, the truth is, I'm just dealing with recollections of
I
events that
understand.
happened a long time ago. I'm not 100% sure.
Well, do you know whether there was rehearsal that day?
I don't know.
All right. Do you know what time the meeting was?
It was in the late afternoon.
Before evening? Before 4, before 5?
Either 4 or 5
All right. This meeting was at Michael Jackson's house?
at the Carrollwood Drive house.
All right.
yes.
And who called the meeting?
I think Paul Gongware and Frank DeLeo did.
And do you know what the topic or the reason, what reason was given to call this meeting?
It was a preliminary meeting to discuss, what Dr. Murray was going to do for Michael, and there were some concerns that Frank had and others about Michael not eating, losing weight, and we wanted to just have a general meeting to discuss Michael's health.
All right. So at the meeting was Frank DeLeo
Correct.
and yourself. Dr. Murray was there.
Correct.
Michael Jackson was there.
Correct.
And
And Paul Gongware.
Paul Gongware. What about Kenny Ortega?
To the best of my recollection, he wasn't at this meeting.
Okay. Now we're going to go back to that meeting in a second, but now I want to kind of move back to May, and I want to ask you: do you recall any concerns being given by Kenny Ortega or others about Michael Jackson's condition during performances or rehearsals?
In May?
In May.
No.
All right. Did you have any conversations with Michael Amir Williams about Michael Jackson's condition?
No.
All right. So let's go to the meeting in June, the first meeting. Do you recall the conversation? What conversation was being had at that meeting?
Very, very vaguely, because it was so long ago. I just remember during the meeting, Dr. Murray said that he was going to make sure Michael had a proper diet, and he was preparing these very high nutrient protein shakes for him. And that's kind of the highlight that I remember of the meeting.
Do you remember having a conversation with Dr. Murray about Michael Jackson's health, about his condition during that meeting?
Just asking him how is his health, is it good? And he said yes, he's in great health.
Any other conversation with him?
Regarding?
Anything involving Michael Jackson's condition or medical history?
No.
All right. All right, so the agreement was made, or were you satisfied at the meeting that everybody had addressed the issues with Michael Jackson's weight and health?
Yeah, I felt very good based on both Michael and Dr. Murray's responses.
All right.
As did Frank DeLeo.
And how did you feel about how Dr. Murray responded to your concerns, or the concerns of AEG or the production company?
Well, it was all of our concerns. But, no, it was very obvious that Michael had great trust in Dr. Murray in that meeting and deferred to him on the questions of health.
And was it obvious to you that Dr. Murray also had great concern for Michael Jackson?
You're asking my observation?
Yes.
Yes, I thought they had a close personal relationship.
All right. And it appeared that Dr. Murray wanted to help Michael Jackson.
Yes, it did.
Were you directly involved in any of the negotiations with Dr. Murray, hiring Dr. Murray for this tour?
No.
All right. Want to go past the meeting early June and talk about where the production was after that time. Now, at the time that you had your first meeting in early June at Michael Jackson's house, rehearsals were going on at that time.
Yes.
All right. And they were going on at the Forum, is that correct?
At that time, to the best of my recollection, they had probably left Burbank, Center Staging, which were the rehearsal studios, and had moved into production rehearsals at the Forum. It was sometime in June.
All right. And so do you recall whether or not the rehearsals were at June at that time during that meeting, the first meeting in June?
No, I don't.
All right. But rehearsals were absolutely going on, you know that? Right?
Yes.
Okay. And Michael Jackson was expected to be at these rehearsals?
Not at all of them, no.
Was there any concern sometime after, in June, about Michael Jackson missing rehearsals?
There was a concern. I think it was more towards the second week in June that Kenny expressed, Ortega expressed to me.
All right. Prior to the second week of June, did Kenny Ortega express any concern about Michael Jackson missing rehearsals or having poor rehearsals?
Well, not during the May rehearsals were at Center Staging. And Michael came to a few of those, but he wasn't expected because there was a new band, ostensibly. There were some of the same players he'd used before, but a new music director. So they were getting the music right, and he did not need to be at every one of those rehearsals.
Okay, so there was no concern in May. How about prior to your first meeting in June of 2009? Was there any concern expressed by Kenny Ortega or anybody else?
To the best of my recollection, not that early.
All right, so now let's go that first week of June, the early June, and let's forward that. You're saying that there were problems then with Michael Jackson missing rehearsals.
Kenny started to get concerned that Michael wasn't engaged as much as he needed to be, as focused as he needed to be on a production of this magnitude.
And you say he started to get concerned? Was this a progressive problem, or did he just get concerned after missing one rehearsal?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
All right. Did he address this concern with you? Did Kenny Ortega come to you and say, look, we need to do something?
I think Kenny spoke to me numerous times, but I think he first went to Paul and to Frank DeLeo. Because they were there every day. I had a business to run. I was doing other things.
All right. Now, as we get into June, the first do you recall when this production was about to pack up and move to London? Do you know the date of when that was going to occur?
To the best of my recollection, it was supposed to move to London around June 25th.
All right. And so as we get into June, it becomes extremely important, doesn't it, that rehearsals are attended and well and done well by all the individuals involved, because you're getting close to the time for the show to start. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Sort of the pressure on Kenny Ortega and the entire production rises as you get closer to that show. Is that right?
That is correct.
And is this pressure, did you start seeing that in Kenny Ortega?
Yes.
And the main concern that Kenny Ortega was having was Michael Jackson's performance, his showing up at rehearsals.
And his focus.
And his focus.
Was the word that Kenny used.
When Kenny Ortega brought this to your attention, what did you do?
I may have had a conversation with Dr. Murray. I remember having a phone call with Michael Amir Williams saying, it's really critical that Michael show up for rehearsals because the show he's the fulcrum of the production and it really revolves around him. So even though he knows these dance moves, intimately, and he's just reinterpreting what he's been doing his whole career. Okay, the entire show, it's such a massive production, it really needs Michael's presence because people have to key off of him, and they have to build the cues, the effects, everything off of Michael.
And why did you call Michael Amir Williams and not Michael Jackson himself?
Because when I actually called for Michael to have that discussion, but Michael was, I was told he was resting at the time.
All right, so you had the conversation instead with Michael Amir Williams.
Correct.
You said also that you spoke to Dr. Murray.
I think I may have had a phone call with him. I'm not 100% sure.
All right.
Because there was so much going on at this time.
Did you speak to anyone else?
No.
No. Ultimately, as things progressed, there was another meeting held on the 20th of June at Michael Jackson's residence. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. Now let's talk about the events that occurred the week prior. You were familiar that the week prior there were further missed rehearsals. Is that your understanding?
I wasn't at the rehearsals that week.
I wasn't at the rehearsals that week is the answer.
You
sustained. The answer remains.
Did you receive phone calls from Kenny Ortega stating that?
Objection calls for hearsay.
The objection is sustained.
There was in trial, you understand that there was offered into evidence or shown to the jury an email that was sent from Kenny Ortega to you.
Correct. Yes.
And you have seen that email?
Yes, you showed it to me.
Okay.
What exhibit number?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, just for the benefit of the jury, since it's been reflected, can counsel take a moment?
Yes, we can. Let me see your list.
I think it's People's One, actually. Thank you from the peanut gallery in the jury box. People's One. Thank you.
All right. This email from Kenny Ortega, do you recall getting this email?
I believe I got it the next morning. I think it was sent in the middle of the night, and I received it when I awoke the next day.
All right. This email that talks about pulling the plug, about we played the tough love card. Did you understand what Kenny Ortega was talking about?
I didn't understand the tough love part of it. So no, I didn't. I really wasn't sure what he was referring to by the tough love part of it, but I understood the rest of the email pertaining to Michael coming to rehearsal but not being well, being sent home, and that he was getting concerned that Ms. Paul Gongaware described the arc of the production. First time I had ever heard that, but that as we were getting closer to the actual opening of this massive show, that there was concern that Michael wasn't really taking it seriously enough or focused on it.
Was there concern that the show could not go on if he didn't take it more seriously?
No.
So the concern was that it would have to be pushed back further and further and further?
That there might have to be postponements if they didn't have enough technical time to deal with the size of the production.
And at some point it could be postponed to the point where production would not be possible?
I can't speculate on that.
When Kenny Ortega in his email suggests pulling the plug, is that a phrase you used or Paul Gongaware used? Do you know where that came from?
No. First time I read it was in that email.
All right. And
No one on our end was ever contemplating pulling the plug.
Was this do you know whether this is a conversation that Kenny Ortega had with Michael Jackson?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained. Calls for hearsay.
What did you do in response to getting that email?
Well, actually, I got the email, but Frank DeLeo, who was out of town at the time and also received the email, or was forwarded a copy, I don't know if he was on the original chain, he actually called me from either Nashville or Pittsburgh, where his principal residence was, and asked me if I would put together a meeting on that Saturday. I believe this 20th was a Saturday. Would I put together a meeting with Michael, Dr. Murray, Kenny Ortega, and myself?
He was pretty adamant about that meeting?
Who, Frank?
Yes.
He thought it was essential to have the meeting, yes.
All right. And what did you do then?
I believe I either emailed or called Dr. Murray to set up the meeting.
Did Frank DeLeo, in his conversation with you about having this meeting, did he ever mention to you concern about drug use by Michael Jackson?
No.
No. Do you recall having any conversation with Dr. Murray about drug use by Michael Jackson?
When you say drug use, are you talking about prescription drugs?
Yes.
There was one conversation I had with Dr. Murray after in the June meeting. To my recollection, it was at the end of our meeting. I believe I went up to Dr. Murray and said that Dr. Klein, who's a dermatologist in Beverly Hills, was also treating Michael, and was he aware of that? And I just left it at that.
All right. And why did you feel the need to tell Dr. Murray that? What was your concern?
My concern, and why I felt I should tell him or ask him if he knew about that, was that there was a meeting a production meeting at Michael's house around that same time period, where Michael was not as focused as he usually is. Because on the production meetings, he was like laser focused on every element of the show. I mean, he's a consummate perfectionist. In this one meeting, he just seemed a little distracted, not focused.
What did that have to do with Dr. Klein?
Well, after the meeting, as we were leaving, I asked Michael Amir Williams, I said, is everything okay? Out of concern. And he said, no, he just came from Dr. Klein's office.
All right.
And I didn't know what that meant, but that's
not,
what he said to me.
You didn't know what kind of treatment
No.
that Dr. Klein was giving Michael
No.
Jackson? But it was sufficient for you to mention it to Dr. Murray?
Yes.
Since you didn't know about the treatment that Dr. Klein was giving, did you further just say, did you say, hey, Dr. Murray, my concern is that he looks a little out of it when he leaves Dr. Klein's office? Or did you just simply say, hey, he's seeing Dr. Klein?
I just said he's seeing Dr. Klein. You know, I mean, because he's his principal physician, I thought he should know, in case Michael hadn't told him, that he should know that he was seeing another doctor.
All right. Were you aware of any other doctors
No.
at the time? All right. You were aware that Michael Jackson had problems in the past with prescription drugs?
The objection, just a minute, please. The objection sustained, the partial answer stricken.
All right. What did you assume that the meeting on June 20, the emergency, would you classify this as an emergency meeting, the meeting at Carrollwood on June 20th?
Well, based on Kenny's email, it would appear that it was, in his mind, an emergency meeting. I don't like to use that word because it sounds a little alarmist to me, but there was a meeting held.
It wasn't just Kenny Ortega's email, it was also Frank DeLeo's phone call.
Correct. It was actually Frank who asked, and he couldn't be there because he was out of town, and he asked me to set up the meeting. Because it might have been a meeting that Frank would have set up with Dr. Murray and Michael himself.
What did you think the meeting was going to be about?
Michael's tardiness on attending rehearsals.
Were you aware of the events that had transpired on June 19th, the day before?
Only from reading the email about sending him
All
home.
right. And Frank DeLeo didn't discuss it with you?
He wasn't there. So he was also responding to what Kenny was telling us.
Okay.
And also John Hugendahl, who was the production manager for the show, also said that he felt that there was something wrong.
All right. So at the meeting, who showed up? Who arrived for the meeting?
The meeting was, the attendees at the meeting were Dr. Murray, Michael Jackson, Kenny Ortega, and me.
And this was at Michael Jackson's residence,
At
right?
at the living room in the Carrollwood
Did
house.
you call Dr. Murray yourself?
I don't remember if I emailed him or called him about the meeting.
Did you call Kenny Ortega
Yes.
and Michael Amir or Michael Jackson?
No, I actually asked Dr. Murray to set up the meeting.
All right. So you called Dr. Murray and said, please set this up. Did you tell him what it was
Yes.
for?
Yes.
Did you tell Dr. Murray what the meeting was for?
I believe I told him that Kenny Ortega had concern. I may have even forwarded him that email. I don't remember, but it's very possible I may have even forwarded him the email or read the email to him.
All right. So what time was the meeting held?
To the best of my recollection, it was in the early afternoon on Saturday, June 20th, 2008.
And what
2009.
And what was discussed at this meeting?
At the meeting, Kenny opened the meeting up by talking about his concern that Michael needed to really focus and to really pay attention to this production, that it was massive, and they couldn't do it without him. They needed his engagement. They needed to build it around him. There were huge technical aspects to this production, including Michael flying in a 3D suit and all these things that really required his attendance, especially in the later stage production rehearsals.
Would you classify Kenny Ortega's description of this as animated? Was he pretty excited when he was talking about this?
No, he was pretty level and calm.
And was he directing this at Michael Jackson?
Yes.
All right. And what was Michael Jackson's response?
Michael didn't respond immediately. Okay, Dr. Murray spoke for Michael on the situation and Michael's focus and Michael's showing up and guaranteed us that Michael would get into it, would connect. Michael then explained that he had been working with Travis Payne, the lead choreographer, at home, that he knew these routines. You know, that's why he hadn't really engaged as intensely as Kenny would have liked him to up till now. I mean, Michael was very clear that he was ready. What he said to Kenny, to the best of my recollection in terms of the wording, is he said, "You build the house, and I'll put on the door and paint it." And that's as direct a quote as I can remember.
And this is a quote that he gave at the meeting.
Correct.
And to Kenny Ortega.
To Kenny Ortega directly.
And what was Kenny Ortega's response to that?
It was great. That's all I wanted to hear from you.
All right. So
Yes. And that was happening. There was an exchange between Dr. Murray and Dr. Kenny, and then Kenny Ortega and Dr. Murray, that Kenny should be the director of the show and leave Michael's health to Dr. Murray.
was Kenny Ortega complaining about Michael Jackson's health?
No, he just didn't understand why Michael wasn't engaged the way he expected him to be. So one of the reasons he was speculating is that there were health concerns.
All right. And Kenny Ortega was making that comment that perhaps there's health concerns.
Correct.
Did he make any comments about drug concerns, use of drugs?
Not in that meeting, no.
Did he ever make that comment to you? Was he ever, and he expressed that concern to you ever?
Calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Did anybody at that meeting discuss with Dr. Murray about the possibility that Michael Jackson was using drugs, prescription drugs or otherwise?
No, not to my
It was
recollection.
never brought up in that meeting at all?
Not to my recollection, no.
You did not go to Dr. Murray after the meeting and tell him anything about it?
No,
All right. You don't know if Kenny Ortega did?
no. We all left together, so I don't think so.
Dr. Murray left with you?
No, he stayed on.
All right. Were you present at the rehearsals on 23rd and 24th?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Was that a standard practice for you?
For me?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, considering the meeting we had on June 20th, yes, it would have been remiss of me not to show up to the first rehearsal after that meeting.
It seemed important to you to show up.
Yes, it did.
Make sure everything was back on track.
Correct.
All right. I want to take you to the 25th of June, 2009, at the hospital. When did you first learn that Michael Jackson was taken to the hospital?
I received a phone call from Frank DeLeo. I think it was approximately 10:30 or 11 o'clock in the morning. That Michael was having trouble breathing. There were paramedics at the house. Where was I? I was in Westwood. He said, "You're closer to the house than me. Can you get up there right away?" I'm still at the Beverly Hilton Hotel.
All right. And what time was this?
I believe, to the best of my recollection, it was somewhere around 10:30 or 11 o'clock in the morning.
All right. And this came from Frank DeLeo?
Yes. First call I got was from Frank DeLeo.
Okay. Do you know who called Frank DeLeo?
No.
All right. So what did you do in response to that?
I jumped in my car and sped up to Michael's house on Carrollwood Drive.
All right. And what time? Do you recall how long it took you to get to Michael's house in Carrollwood Drive?
About 15 minutes.
All right. And when you arrived, what did you see?
The paramedics and the ambulance, the red ambulance, was leaving the gates of the Carrollwood Drive, and right behind it were two SUVs, black SUVs, that I believed had Michael's security patrol and his family, meaning the children.
They were leaving the residence.
Correct.
And what did you do?
I turned my car around and got behind them.
Okay. And you went to the hospital.
Yes.
All right. Were you at the hospital the entire time that security or Michael Jackson was there?
Yes, I was.
All right. And do you recall how long you stayed when you left the hospital?
I was there all day into the early evening.
And at some point during that period of time, you saw Dr. Murray there?
Yes, I did.
All right. And you saw Dr. Murray in the emergency room?
When there was a curtain, they were behind these sliding glass doors. I was in the hallway. Eventually, I was joined by Frank DeLeo. The two of us were in the hallway, sitting on a gurney, as I remember. And there was this flurry of activity going on behind this curtain in the emergency room at the Ronald Reagan Emergency Center at UCLA.
All right. And you saw Dr. Murray in there?
Yes.
All right. And where else did you see Dr. Murray? In the hospital, if you remember?
Later that day, in a lobby, to a lobby that was south of the emergency room complex. There was a lobby connecting the hospital, and there was a conference room that we were using, and I saw him in front of that conference room.
All right. And what were you using the conference room for, Mr. Phillips?
Just to get everyone, Frank, everyone involved with Michael, his attorneys, everyone in a room to deal with the tragedy that unfolded.
And when you say deal with the tragedy, you're talking about how to announce it to the public, for instance, how to deal with the media, that kind of thing?
Correct.
All right. All right. Did you have occasion to talk to Dr. Murray?
Once.
And where were you when you had that conversation with him?
I was in the in this lobby of the Ronald Reagan building.
And did Dr. Murray say anything to you about what had happened with Michael Jackson?
No, he was in severe distress, obviously.
Did he say anything to you?
No, to be honest with you, I don't remember. There was so much going on, but he was just in severe distress.
All right, I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Chernoff, thank you. May this be an appropriate time to take the mid-afternoon break?
That's fine, Your Honor.
Yes? Let's do that, ladies and gentlemen. Please take the mid-afternoon break. Of course, remembering all of the admonishments. We'll be in recess until approximately 2:35, and we'll notify you. Thank you.